12-year-old Adanna hid behind the curtain, her small hands clutched around the curtain. She heard the clash of blades, the gasps, the screams, and then her mother's voice, trembling but defiant. "You will never wear his crown, Emeka. Not while my daughter breathes." A pause. Then steel against flesh. Her uncle's sword was red. When he turned and saw Adanna hiding behind the curtain, he smiled. "You are next," he said. The sound never left Adanna's mind. Not that night. Not in the years to come. That was the night Adanna ran. When she ran from the palace, she was not alone. Her personal maid, Ngozi, refused to leave her side. "If you die, my princess," she said, gripping her hand as they fled through the forest, "then my life ends with yours." For weeks, they traveled by night, sleeping under trees, drinking from muddy streams, and avoiding soldiers loyal to her uncle, now King Emeka the Great, as he called himself. They reached the city with nothing but rags, a few coins, and the fear that every shadow might carry a dagger meant for her. One morning, as they sat by the roadside watching the city wake up, Adanna said quietly, "He is still looking for me." Ngozi nodded. "Yes. But he will not find you here." Adanna looked at her reflection in a puddle, long hair, soft face, eyes that looked too royal for this dirty street. "He will," she said. "He always will. Unless I stop being me." Ngozi frowned. "What do you mean?" Then came Adanna's plan. "I have to stop being Adanna." They went to a barber store nearby. Her long braids, once jeweled, once envied, fell in soft heaps to the floor as the barber cut them off. Beneath them, a sharp bone face emerged, unfamiliar yet strong. From that day forward, Adanna died. And Eo, a quiet orphan boy from a forgotten village, was born. Ngozi became Namdi, his brother. They used the last money on them to get boy clothing, and together, they moved through the city's chaos, markets, motor parks, always looking over their shoulders. Always pretending not to be who they were. They found work sweeping the courtyard of a small church that took them in and funded their education. The priest was kind but watchful, his eyes always lingering on Eo a little too long, as if he sensed something beneath the disguise. 5 years passed. Eo was now 17, taller, stronger, with quiet eyes that hid too many secrets. As puberty hit, they had to wrap themselves and wore hoodies most of the time. She trained every morning, jogging before dawn, lifting anything heavy she could find. Ngozi trained too. They both knew that if her uncle ever found them again, running would not be enough. Then came Andrew. He was in her class, loud, funny, and kind. He liked to argue, and Eo liked to argue back. They became close friends. Sometimes, when he laughed, her chest tightened. She tried to ignore it. But the feeling grew. There were moments, like when they walked home under the rain, or when their hands brushed, that almost turned into something more. One evening, they almost kissed, but Andrew froze and pulled away. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. I don't like boys." Eo just nodded. She wanted to tell him the truth right then. But fear held her back. If anyone found out she was a girl, her secret would spread, and her uncle's men might hear. So she stayed silent. The strange thing was, the girls at school also liked her. They slipped her notes, waited for her after class, whispered her name in the hallways. Eo laughed awkwardly, never knowing how to act. The lie was closing in on her from all sides. One afternoon, she made a decision. "I'll tell him," she said to Ngozi. "Andrew. I'll tell him the truth." Ngozi looked worried but nodded. "Maybe it's time." That same day, as Eo walked to the bus stop, she saw a familiar face in the crowd. A scar over the right eye. The royal crest tattooed on his wrist. One of her uncle's bodyguards. Her blood turned cold. He looked straight at her. Recognition flickered in his eyes. Then he shouted her name and her real name. Adanna. Outrun. She ran through traffic, through alleys, through the noise of horns and shouting people. Ngozi joined her halfway, pulling her into an abandoned warehouse. They hid there till dark. Ngozi's whisper was barely a breath. "He's found us." And Ao, trembling, realized she could run again, or she could fight. "I'm done running," Ao said. "He wants me dead. I want my home back." Because beneath the disguise, beneath the fear, the blood of King still burned in her veins. Ngozi nodded, as if she had been waiting for that moment all along. Over the following weeks, Ao began to move through the city differently. No longer hiding, but watching. Listen. She learned that not all in Iruwa supported King Emeka. Many whispered that the land had turned barren under his rule, crops dying, rivers drying. Traders grumbled that the king's men stole more than they taxed. Some remembered the queen, her kindness, her laughter, and mourned her. Ao found them the broken, the angry, the forgotten, and listened to their stories. Old guards, merchants, and warriors who once served her father and was willing to fight for her, including Father Tond, the quiet priest who had took them in and had known all along that Ao was not what he seemed. He provided her with all the support she needed. They trained together in secret. They gathered weapons and planned every move. By the time the dry season came, Adanna was ready. She returned to her kingdom at night, hidden among her small army. Her uncle still ruled, fat and proud, thinking the girl he tried to kill was long gone. The attack came just before dawn. The palace gates burned. Arrows flew. Ngozi fought like the wind, guarding Adanna's side. Adanna fought her way to the throne room. Her uncle stood there, shocked, sword trembling in his hand. "You, Ispat. You should have died." "So should you," she answered. They fought. He was older, slower, but cruel. She was faster, trained by hate and pain. When she struck him down, she didn't stop until he begged. Then, and only then, she said, "This is for my mother," and ended it. Adanna took back the throne. She ruled Iruwa with strength and fairness. Those who betrayed her family faced punishment. Those who stayed loyal were rewarded. She was called the Iron Queen, but her people also called her the Kind One, because her justice had no favorites. 3 years later, a visitor came to the palace gates. It was Andrew. He had searched for Ao everywhere, trying to understand why his best friend disappeared. When he saw her, wearing the royal robe, he could hardly speak. "You're a girl," he whispered. She smiled faintly. "I always was." He laughed softly, tears in his eyes. "I knew there was something about you." They talked for hours, about the past, the lies, the love that never had a chance. But now it did. Months later, they married. Together, they ruled Iruwa, the city and the palace, peace and justice, side by side. And though Adanna wore a crown, she never forgot the day she lost everything. That memory kept her strong. Because every time she sat on the throne, she remembered the girl who once hid behind the curtain and watched her world burn, and how she built a new one from its ashes.